Throughout the past couple of years on this channel, as I was going through the cast and making why no one plays episodes for the less popular characters, there was one that time after time people kept requesting me to make and then asking why I never got around to making it. That character is Chrom. For the majority of unpopular characters, you could think of a myriad of reasons as to why a person would get turned off from playing them. Looking at my most popular video on Sephiroth, you could attribute his poor representation to his uncharacteristically low weight, making him too vulnerable for how tall he is. You can cast blame on his inconsistent one-wing form disappearing, especially when you need it the most. You could chalk it up to his weakness in close quarters, making it easy for characters to get in melee range and blow him up. Any or all of these can be the deciding factor in people not picking up Sephiroth despite his iconic childhood villain status. Having multiple factors makes for a more interesting video to make. But back to the original subject, the reason I haven't made a Why No One Plays episode on Chrom is because he and a few others are known for being extremely competent fighters in a variety of facets of the game, but are kept out of competitive relevance due to one singular downside. Such downside, however, is big enough to effectively undermine all of their positives, and it wouldn't be that much of an exaggeration to imply that that is the only reason they're not being played. So instead of making a Why No One Plays episode, I want to instead make an archetype discussion video on characters suffering from quote-unquote Chrom Syndrome in Smash Ultimate. It bears clarifying that when evaluating a character's strengths and weaknesses on paper, I'm of course not being literal when I say it's just one. Every character, even the top tiers of Ultimate, have a handful of them. However, in practicality, if you were to gauge all of a character's flaws, Chrom Syndrome fighters have one that comprises a bulk of what would lead a person to say no to them. As the eponymous character of the video title, I figure we should take a look at him to give you an idea of how the rest of the video discussion will play out. At the start of Ultimate, it took no time at all for players to notice the comparatively faster gameplay speed of the installment compared to its predecessor Smash 4. Knockback was faster, jump squats became standardized to frame 3 across the board, and most if not all aerial attacks got significantly safer on shield by virtue of lower landing lag. Coupled with the fact that Chrom's original base, Roy, was substantially buffed in basically all aspects of his kit during the transition to Ultimate, and the community theorized that Chrom might end up being even better, for even though he lacks the same raw kill power that Roy does on Sweet Spot, his hitbox consistency in that he doesn't have a sour spot at all while still possessing the weighted average of Roy's power made him theoretically, if not pragmatically, the best sword fighter in the game, and the cast member who best capitalizes on the advantages offered by Ultimate's gameplay engine. Sword fighters in Smash are known to be balanced around their mid-range combat, giving them the inherent benefit of outranging the majority of melee attacks while having the added property of being disjointed, not exposing their own hurtbox to do so. As such, if they were to receive any additional perks, they would have to compromise on power budget elsewhere. For instance, Ike's high kill power and very long range is offset by poor mobility and frame data, or Mythra's incredible speed, range, frame data, and combo game lead to her having some of the lowest kill power out of any sword fighter in the game. Even Clown with this healthy weight, great mobility, long range, and good kill power has to give up something to have such a balanced array of stats, that being his recovery and to a lesser extent his frame data being slightly worse than melee fighters, mandating that he play at a far enough distance to avoid getting snuffed out by anyone who can attack even a split second faster than him. Accounting for all of that, it makes perfect sense why the player base initially thought Chrom to be the best sword fighter in the game, if not one of the best characters period. Ostensibly speaking, he has every strength one can think of. He's got incredible ground and air speed, fast enough to keep pace with if not outspeed even the fastest in the game. He has some of the best attack speed a sword fighter can ask for, enough to even contest melee fighters, and he's got great disjointed range. Maybe not as far reaching as the likes of Shulk and Ike, but his speed and frame data most definitely make up for it. Rare among sword fighters is the fact that Chrom has a fantastic combo game, chaining multiple attacks into one another and then eventually leading to kill confirms. On that note, Chrom can kill, certainly more handily than his daughter Lucina, having the same kill confirms that Roy does, if not more consistent, as a result of no sour spot. In essence, Chrom is by all metrics a better and more practical version of Roy. So then why are they so far apart from each other in the tier list, and why do people consider Chrom to be so unviable despite his properties and repertoire being the source of envy by many sword fighters? Therein lies the central notion of this video. Characters can have all the strengths in the world, but in a game like Smash, you're only as strong as your weakest link. I understand that quote applies to a team game, but you can even interpret that within the confines of a single character. Chrom Syndrome fighters are those who possess an incredible array of strengths, but because of their one weakness being so overwhelmingly present, that is enough to effectively nullify all of their strengths, no matter how vast or great. In the case of Chrom, that literally sums up why no one plays him. Chrom's recovery is among the most exploitable in the game, possibly even more so than characters notorious for having bad recoveries like Ganondorf. Really, the only thing giving Chrom a fighting chance at getting back to ledge is that he has amazing airspeed, getting him close enough to where he can rely on directional air dodging to recover instead of soaring slash. Not to argue there's no usability for it whatsoever, Lax has demonstrated the ability to find distances to protect himself from any means of counterattack, but the fact that Chrom's hurtbox comes up before the hitbox does makes it so any decently strong frontal attack or down air from above, or really anything for that matter, can lead to certain death for him. This one tiny aspect, his non-existent recovery, is enough to neutralize most all of his strengths, especially in this metagame. During my video on Smash Ultimate's late stage meta development, I talked about how everyone's become more focused on taking as many miles as they can out of a single inch. Having a strong advantage or disadvantage state is a moot point right now. Most of the time you just get 0 to death or die at unreasonably early percents in neutral. For someone like Chrom, he can have all the best everything, but none of those matter the second he gets thrown off stage. Given we humans are not perfect and make errors either by our own hands or because our opponent forces us to, the prospect of getting knocked off stage is not an if but when, at which point top players are pretty good at checkmating you once you do have to recover. People often talk about how if Chrom had Marcina's Dolphin Slash or heck even Roy's Blazer, he would instantly become top 10. I would even go as far as to say giving Chrom either up special would make him stronger than Aegis because he would have the speed and frame data of Mithra without needing to compromise on all of Pyre's attack strength. He very much is the epitome of overpowered but bad because of one singular thing. Or frankly, if Chrom's Soaring Slash actually followed its source material in Fire Emblem Awakening and traveled in a diagonal fashion like Cross Chop, even that would be enough to bring Chrom to at least top 20. Several cast members in Ultimate suffer from Chrom Syndrome in one aspect or another, albeit perhaps not to the same extent as him. Take Sheik for instance. When discussing who has the fastest attack speed in the game, most people would instantly turn to Sheik. Compiling the startup of all of her moves, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to make such a claim that all of her moves, even her smash attacks, rank among the top 3 in speed and even safety to boot. Her nair is -3, her fair is -2, her back air is -4. So many of her attacks come out of frame 5 or even earlier, giving her no trouble in blitzing through anyone even a couple frames behind her. From a mobility point of view, Sheik's also one of the fastest in the game and can easily dance around people's hitboxes, not to mention being very difficult to edgeguard on account of her up and down specials. She even has needles to force approaches, something that even Chrom doesn't have. Sheik's historically been one of the better characters in both Melee and Smash 4, underscoring the importance of all of these traits. However, what makes her significantly worse than Ultimate is her damage output and kill power, rather lack thereof. Sheik has to hit you so many times and get you in very specific situations to be able to threaten your stock. While she can most certainly land killing blows through her smash attack setups or needles into bouncing fish, more than for anyone else, a mutual strike is always a loss for her since everyone else can outdamage her and kill her just a bit faster. Unlike Chrom, however, Sheik has been able to hold a rather decent position on the tier list a couple years ago, being ranked 35 and 31 respectively, placing her squarely in high tier, but if we look at her current placement of rank 45, it's unsurprising why that's the case. Sheik has to do in 3 or 4 neutral interactions while most characters can do in 1. An elaborate combo string consisting of a dozen attacks can easily get matched by any simple combo from most other characters, if not a single attack. For instance, as a Cloud player, Sheik would have to strike me 4 or 5 times to do the same amount of damage that I could get from an Up-B-Etta shield or cross slash. That applies to everyone else as well. If high evasion and a strong combo game is what you're looking for, there's very little if any practical incentive to pick Sheik over Joker, who kind of has the same sort of game plan that she does, but with the added benefit of a bit more kill power, less frailty, and chief of all, Arsene giving him the damage potential of Ganondorf temporarily. Realistically, if Sheik was given a bit more damage and knockback scaling on her attacks to where she can threaten stocks at 120-130 instead of 170, just like Chrom, I would not disagree with her being in top 20 or even top 5. She may even be better considering how well she does against the likes of Aegis, Rob, Kazuya, Roy, and so on. We talked about 2 hypermobile characters, let's go over the opposite, Incineroar, and I suppose we can also include Kirby in the mix. Incineroar is a popular one because next to Chrom, he was one of the first to be discussed in this sort of fashion. Incine's main draw is that he has great damage output, fantastic kill power due in no small part to revenge, phenomenal endurance being a heavyweight, surprisingly good frame data, and combo game despite being a heavyweight, and he's also a grappler, adding a ton of pressure to anyone who likes to shield. When you combine those aspects together, Incine's widely regarded to be the best heavyweight that isn't Kazuya. He can outbox the other heavies and potentially even out DPS them, not to mention turn their own strength against them as well. We all know why he's not making strides in the metagame though, because in a platform fighter like Smash, nothing is more of a death sentence to one's tournament viability than having no mobility. Incine cannot approach or escape for shit. He's so slow that despite having a burst option in the form of a Alolan Whip, if a person's committed to circle camping him, they very easily can. To be fair, Insyn's jump height is excellent, so if you're above him, you have reason to worry, and his attack range is pretty far reaching for a melee fighter, namely thanks to forward air being huge. But Insyn generally spends most of his time trying to get within striking distance of you and then getting punished for doing so. I understand he makes up for that by doing more damage in a single hit than some people do in half a dozen, but once more, the higher up you go, the more optimized people get. For all of Insyn's durability and usage of revenge, he can still get taken out quickly, and in a similar fashion to Chrom, his recovery is truly awful, exacerbated by his absent airspeed doing him no favors in that department. If hypothetically you were to give Incineroar the same ground and airspeed as say Palutena or Mario, I have no doubt in my mind he would be a top 20 character. He already has the close quarters boxing tools, the burst option, the punish game, and the air-to-air. If he can just get close to his opponent, everything changes. That and faster airspeed naturally augments his recovery. There's obviously more examples, but we only have time for maybe one more, and it's in the same vein as Insyn, Kirby. Because of how outdated Kirby's special moves are, in an effort to cut him some slack, Sakurai decided to put his favorite Pink Marshmallow's normals on roids. Kirby's normals are easily some of the best in the game for a boxer. His grounded frame data is on par with Sheik in terms of how fast it is, but unlike Sheik, Kirby has pretty solid kill power on a couple moves, like for example dash attack and disc smash attacks, of which the latter group can be easily used as punish and out of shield options. Forward smash in particular is ridiculously strong for how fast it is and surprisingly how far Kirby travels. Aerials are just as impressive. Neutral air is a -2 aerial that can kill out the strong hit. Forward air is not that fast, but it has deceptively high range, great damage output dealing like 17% on staled, and Fair 1 can set up into a multitude of attacks, not the least of which being Fair 1 into F smash at mid%. Back air is fast and hits like a truck on the strong hit while being decently safe on shield. Down air frequently gets downplayed by Kirby mains for being his weakest move, but for anyone who has to recover vertically, it's one of the scariest in the game. Overall, Kirby has an impeccable boxing game, and being a multi-jumper, he can establish air superiority and mix up when he needs to land. But once again, his poor airspeed and passable ground speed make it really hard for him to get in on his opponent. Kirby has so much trouble getting through anyone who can wall him out, from sorties to zoners. Once he gets in, make no mistake, he can and will blow you up. But Kirby ends up taking a lot of damage trying to get within range of you in neutral by way of how stubby he is, an expense he simply can't afford being one of the lightest characters in the game. Suboptimal airspeed also makes him surprisingly vulnerable to getting edge guarding even with the benefit of being a multi-jumper. You may have heard people make this claim before: if Kirby had the same airspeed as Jigglypuff, he would be high tier. I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with that. If Kirby had better airspeed, not only would he be better on stage, but off stage as well. Kirby can be a better edge guarder than Jigglypuff given the way his moves are designed, and he already is known for edge guarding quite well. That being said, he could also use better specials, but that's been discussed exhaustively already. From my point of view, I don't think it's particularly a bad thing for these characters to be good in many fields but be so abhorrently bad in another. I don't think it's the best game design though. True, every fighter should have defined strengths and weaknesses, but I feel like most Kirby, Insyn, Chrom, and Sheik players would agree on divesting a bit from their strengths if it means they can alleviate some of their weaknesses. Like I said, if Chrom had Roy's Blazer, he would straight up be just a better Roy. There has to be some kind of trade-off to these characters. Insyn with Game & Watch airspeed would be very frustrating to fight since he can destroy you in 3 hits. All the same, it's kind of unfair that Chrom Syndrome characters exist when there are other characters in the game with the same range of benefits that they have without, you know, the Chrom Syndrome, like Steve, Kazuya, and Minmin. They really should be consistent about that, but again, we'll have to wait for the next Smash game. What do you guys think about Chrom Syndrome characters? Do you believe they could be thrown a bone, or do you think it's good that they're in this position? Let me know in the comments down below. That's it for today, so if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you'd like to like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other Smash Ultimate discussion videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.
Regardless though, he's looking absolutely fantastic. Goes really deep down for that edge guard. Doesn't get punished for it. The M in action is trying to read all these approaches right now.
Back air miss.
So now all the strong moves, then that back air. Unfortunately missed space, the hitbox doesn't come out, and yeah, it just gets punished for it with an F smash. Sure, fine. If it works, it works.